I need somebody right away. Oh, I called 911.
What point did you find out?
I found out that night. He wouldn't move. He wouldn't answer.
Hello everyone, Jeff Yalden here with Here Tomorrow. I'm honored to have this opportunity of sharing with you a story like no other.
Zachary was diagnosed when he was 17 years old with paranoid schizophrenia was his diagnosis. With that being said, he started self-medicating. And when he started that, we noticed a tremendous change with Zachary.
All this come out in the psychiatrist.
All of this came out in the psychiatrist.
So not only were you guys wanting to be compassionately present for Zachary as he's going through this, but then to be hit with this bombshell, this was a really hard time for the family because now CPS is involved.
I was able to convince him, Zachary, we need to get you. We need to take you to the hospital.
Were you scared?
I kind of got used to it.
Were you scared for you, the family, or were you more scared for him?
I was scared for him.
Meaning, were you concerned about what he was going to do?
I was just scared for him. I didn't want him to have something to happen to him. But I wasn't afraid for our family. He had a mental break, and this was a bad mental break.
You have to put the responsibility back where it belongs. But also, I'm not sure he was capable of making these healthy decisions, so they should have probably leaned on mom and dad a little bit more. So in part of your story, what do you think could have been done differently?
I think they should have allowed me to play a role in Zachary's care. You know, he was going through another medication change.
You called 911. You were scared. Was that a medication change?
They changed his medication. They took him off what he normally takes. And I was very upset with them because they put him on something that I was totally unfamiliar with. And they didn't talk with me about it. They just talked with Zachary about it.
Were the medical professionals communicating? So he had a psychiatrist before he went in. He went in an emergency 911. Were they talking to the psychiatrist? Or did the psychiatrist there, the mental health professionals, they made a decision to change the medication?
Yeah, they did.
He went in, they changed his medication. When they changed his medication to when he was let out, what was that time?
A couple of days.
And part of the safety plan, did they let you know they changed the medication?
When I reviewed his discharge paperwork, I saw that it had been changed.
But did they tell you, or you're advocating so you were proactive in reading?
Right, but they were not
forthcoming with that information. But did they have to legally because he was an adult?
They didn't have to.
But what you're trying to advocate for is there's got to be a collaboration amongst family, mental health professionals, and your son working together.
Exactly. Exactly.
The system's not perfect, is it?
Not at all. He wanted to try him on something new. He said, I have a few patients that are on it, and they seem to be doing fairly well with it.
Did they wean him off it?
They didn't wean him off.
They took him off it?
Took him off cold turkey and put him on this one. He said it would be okay. He only had 3 days of medication. So we were waiting. The clock was ticking. So being off of the medication that he was on prior, now being on a new medication, but he only had 3 days worth. Now we're into the weekend.
With no medication now.
Medication.
Do you think the doctor is at fault for not being more cognizant of this time frame? Or it sounds like you were on top of it saying, well, we had a couple of days, but we're going on a weekend. What are we going to do? Did you communicate with the doctor?
And I was very close because we were very close in proximity together,
Okay.
you know.
So what happened?
And then Zachary, he started self-medicating again.
And so the self-medicating was his way of coping to ease the pain and the thoughts.
And then his behavior got bizarre. Some of the things that Zachary started saying, he said to his brother, as far as something big was going to happen.
What do you mean?
Well, he said to his brother something big was going to probably happen to his dad.
When he made this comment, did he get back on the medication? Was this like
All in that time frame.
a weekend?
Like, yeah, over the weekend. And even that week prior. And so his brother said, you know, he went directly to his dad. And when he told his dad, then Carlton told me. And when he told me, I was like, oh no.
What did Carlton say to you?
He said that his brother said that Zachary said something was going to happen to his dad. I got to get him in the hospital.
Well, what were you thinking? What does that mean? Something big is going to happen?
I had no clue, but I had no clue.
Did you address this with Zachary?
Absolutely.
What did he say?
God's going to punish him one day. One day God's going to punish him. Mom, this is what Dad did. And God is not pleased with that. And something will happen to him because of it. And I said, Zachary, you need to get help. We're going to get you some help. And he didn't want to go to the hospital this time.
Did he fight you on it?
He would do what I tell him to do. And I said, Zachary, get in the car. Let's go. We're going to go for a ride. Let's just ride and talk. I was able to convince him he needed to go in the hospital.
Was you scared?
He was scared. He didn't want to go in.
But he knew that he wasn't feeling right. And you were scared.
Yeah, because I didn't know what he might be capable of doing.
How long was he in this time?
When you've gone through this process so many times with mental illness, sometimes they can present themselves to being okay. And if they say that they're okay, they don't have homicidal, suicidal thoughts, then they're like, well, I'm going to let you go.
And he's an adult.
You're an adult.
Was he back on the medication at this point?
They had gotten him back on the medication.
Okay.
Medication came in. And I said, Zachary, you wouldn't hurt your dad, would you? Or your brother? Oh, no, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't hurt Dad or his brother. He said, if they will hurt themselves, I wouldn't do it. I still pleaded with them to let me be a part, let me speak with the doctors, let me be a part, because Zachary wasn't well, because they were talking about discharging him.
And they would have discharged him back home.
They kept him the third day. They did keep him an additional day.
You think you did everything you could?
I did, but it wasn't enough.
And so they discharged him.
They discharged him, and the fourth day, I remember I got a phone call to let me know that he was being discharged, and so that I can come pick him up. The only phone call.
Did they have a success plan? Did they have a safety plan in place? When they were discharging him, what were they saying to you?
Make sure he takes his medication.
Did you feel safe at this point?
I told him I didn't.
What about Carlton, your husband?
I didn't feel safe for my family. And I told him what, Zachary said to his brother. I told him what Zachary said to me. And he said, Mrs. Allen, I know what you're saying. He said, but the law protects him. He said, the law says if he is not suicidal or if he is not homicidal, we can't keep him.
So you think there should be a law that overrides that coming from his guardianship, his parents?
Absolutely. He has a mental illness.
So what you're saying is the law protects them, but the law's not protecting your family because you're at a place at this moment where he's being discharged and you have to bring him home, But you were scared.
I was afraid for my family. I was afraid for Carlton. I was afraid for my son. I was afraid. Dad, all I want you to do is just apologize to me, and I'll forgive you. Just apologize. Just say you're sorry. Just say you did it. Zachary, I want to say this to you, before your mom, before God. Zachary, if I touch you in any way inappropriately, let God take my life right now. Right now, right in front of you, right in front of your mom, let God take my life right now if I hurt you. He said, son, I would never hurt you. Son, I love you.
And so he comes home that night.
Very cold. I was in my bedroom. Carlton was in the den, and our kitchen is right next to the den. And my son was in there getting ready to fix him something to eat. And all of a sudden, we heard this boom noise. And I heard someone just holler, crying. So I came flying out of my bedroom, and I see my oldest son on the floor. The plate was broken, and it was just splattered all over the floor. And he said, what did I do, Zachary? I'm sorry. What did I do? I'm sorry. Suddenly, Zachary just rushed up on him and just pushed him, shoved him real hard. That was totally out of character for him. And Zachary was a pretty big boy. And just to hear my son hit that floor like that, and my husband just rushed to my oldest son and grabbed him, it was just, and just to see Zachary just standing there, in the stance that he had, that was not him. That wasn't him. That wasn't my son. That wasn't Zachary.
How did Zachary respond after this?
I rushed him in the room, and I said, Zachary, I'm taking you back to the hospital. I'm okay, Mom. I'm okay, Mom.
You took him away from the situation. Did he know what he did? Was he sorry?
No, he wasn't.
Was he aware of what just happened?
He was aware. He knew what happened.
Part of the psychosis?
It could have been.
And you wanted to take him to the hospital right then?
Got him out of the house, and we went for a ride. But see, he should not have been taken off the medication that he was on prior, just cold turkey.
What would Carlton say when Carlton's with your other son, you quickly take Zachary out of this situation, you go for a drive? Do they even talk to you?
They talked to me. I was back there with them.
What did you say?
I ended up talking with his dad. His dad said something else Zachary told him that shook me to my core. And he said, Terri, Zachary told his brother that he had a gun.
Why do you think your husband didn't tell you this when he told you that something bad was going to happen?
I don't know.
So Carlton says to you, Zachary has a gun. And how'd you respond to that?
It shook me. And I said, I need you to get the nurse for me. I need somebody right away. They ended up having the social worker to come, and Zachary said he didn't have no suicidal thoughts. So they said, okay, well, there's no need to keep him. Zachary has a gun, and I am afraid. And he said, that's all I need to know. We're gonna keep him.
How long did they keep him?
They were talking about discharging him on the second day.
So they didn't want to keep him overnight. He has a gun, and they kept him for a night, and they talked about discharging him.
I would say on the fourth day. On the fourth day, they called me.
And so they called you just to basically say, we're discharging him, he's ready to be picked up?
That's exactly why they called me. I said, I'm afraid for our family. He said that he had a gun, and I'm afraid. The nurse said to me, I understand. But the law says if he is not suicidal or homicidal, we can't keep him. The law protects Zachary.
But the law doesn't protect the family. The law doesn't protect Dad, your
The
husband.
law didn't protect Carlton. And I remember getting his stuff in the car and the nurse looking up to Zachary and saying, "Good luck, Zachary."
Those words you'll never forget.
Anyway, I got Zachary in the car. We drove off. I remember grabbing him something to eat. He was hungry.
Where were you going to go?
Just trying to not bring him home.
He's your son.
He's my son. Everybody was full, or it was a waiting list. Didn't have a whole lot of choices, Jeff.
You hadn't seen your husband or your other son, anyone in the family, for hours as you're trying to find placement for Zachary. And so it's getting late. What did you decide to do?
Carlton, he called me. He said, "How you doing, honey?" I said, "Just trying, still looking. I don't know what to do. Just bring him home, honey.
Just bring him home, honey.
Just bring him home."
He was still scared,
I'm sure.
but he was...
That was his son.
Yeah.
He loved Zachary.
So what happened from here? You brought him home, family's together, it's late at night.
Yeah, and Zachary went straight to his room, and I remember Carlton saying something to him, "How you doing, son?" Zachary totally ignored him. Totally ignored him.
Zachary was scared. And Dad tried.
A few days later, there was he had no interaction, no contact,
Zachary kind of stayed away all...
July 3rd. And our family, like for the 4th of July, Carlton, he was the grill master,
You guys as a family were trying to put all this behind you and celebrate the 4th.
Because that was our tradition.
So this was a happy time, this particular day.
We were going to have family over and celebrate, just being off, and watching the fireworks in the backyard. My daughter and myself, I had an aunt who had just gotten out of the hospital. So I was going to take her something to eat. Something just hit me inside and said, "Go back. Just stand there and just watch him. Just look at him."
And where was Zachary during this time?
He left the house.
Do you know where he went?
I had no idea where he went. He said, "You okay?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm okay. I'm just watching you."
You were married for 31 years, but you had a feeling.
It was like, "Go back." I heard it just as clear inside of me, "Go back."
You really felt for what he was going through.
Very much so.
I'm sorry. And so what ended up happening? Did you end up going off and delivering the food?
He leaned over and, gave me a kiss, and he said, "I'll see you later, honey."
Were those his last words to you?
Yep. So we drove off. I really felt so nervous. And my daughter said the same thing. I just had this anxiety inside. I gotta get home. Feeling like something was wrong. I felt it. She did too. I remember when we got inside the house, I called out, "Carlton, Carlton." And when I went out, when I went outside,
It's okay, just breathe.
I found him. Oh, I found him.
You found him?
I found him. He was laying on the floor, face down. I couldn't see his face.
Where was Zachary?
I don't know. He wasn't there. Nobody was there but me and my daughter. Oh, I called 911.
Did you know what happened at this point?
I didn't know. All I know, I had no idea, but I just saw him laying on the floor and he wouldn't move. He wouldn't answer me. He wouldn't answer me. He wouldn't move. When they came, they said he was gone.
Where was Zachary?
Zachary went to the hospital.
How'd you find that out?
I found that out later.
Zachary took himself to the hospital?
Yeah, I think he drove.
At what point did you find out that Zachary had killed his father?
I found out that night. They told me.
Zachary did?
The police, because the police came along with the ENT and fire department, and they said they already knew.
Was he under the influence?
I'm sure.
Terri, do you think that Zachary murdered his father?
I believe that Zachary did.
He was tried and found not guilty by reason of insanity. And my question, do you think he knew what he was doing?
I believe that.
You and Carlton were married for 31 years.
And 31 good years, too.
He sounds like he was an amazing man.
And he loved Zachary till the end.
And so here we are. You've gone through many years of mourning the loss of your husband. Are you angry with Zachary?
At first I was. At first I was.
Where are you now?
Zachary is my son.
Have you forgiven him?
Zachary is not well. He was not well at the time. And he's still getting help, getting treatment. And yes, I have forgiven my son. I have to give him, I have to extend to him what has been extended to me. And that is forgiveness.
Not a day goes by where you don't miss Carlton.
Not a day goes by. Trouble comes, storm comes to every home, every life. But what do you do when the storm comes? Do we retreat? Somebody has to survive the storm to give the others hope that guess what? You can get through this. You can make it. We can't give up. So I couldn't give up. So when the storm comes, what do?